So after the most long and miserable plane trip I have ever taken in my life, we finally arrived in Santiago late Tuesday night, tired and hungry. However, after we settled into our homestays that night, we went out the next day and started exploring the city right away, taking a hike up a mountain in Santiago and walking around the city a lot. During our stay in Santiago, we spent the rest of the time in Spanish school, except for Saturday and Sunday, where we learned some Spanish and also had a fun time doing some Spanish related activities. During the rest of our time in Santiago, we also did a lot of other fun stuff, like walking around the city, exploring museums, learning some about the history of Chile, exploring cool places, and hanging out.
Well, just got off the plane in Puerto Natales. Very different than Santiago.
So after getting up very early and arriving in Puerto Natales, we spent the next 2 days preparing for the big trek we were going to do, which would be the big part of our trip. So again, after another early start, we drove 2 hours to the trailhead and started hiking 8 miles to our first stop, which would be Campamento Sedan. The hike itself wouldn't prove too challenging, as we managed to make it in around 4 to 5 hours to camp, which made it one of the easier days of the trek. We would spend the rest of the afternoon chilling at camp as we prepared for our next day. The second day of this trek would prove to be one of the more challenging trail-wise, as we hiked 11 miles with elevation gain, which would be tougher for a lot of the people in the group. However, this was also one of the prettiest days of the hike at times, as we got incredible views of the mountains above and the lakes down below us. On the third day of our trek, we were able to leave camp a little later since it wouldn't be as long of a day. However, we did run into some obstacles like some swarms of mosquitoes and what would be the beginning of some bad weather for the next few days. Around 4:30 a.m., we all awoke for what would be the toughest day of our trek. We woke up in pretty bad conditions, with our tents wet and soggy, but anyways managed to pack up in time to start the hardest day. A 9.5 mile incline with 2,300 feet to our next campsite, which would be Refugio Gray. At first, the weather didn't seem too bad. However, once we got higher up, we ran into maybe the worst snowstorm some of us have ever gone through. However, we ended up making it through it, and which was a glorious moment when we made it to the top. After getting down from the pass, we had some more hiking to do, but nothing like the snowstorm, with some more amazing views, but eventually we were able to make it to our destination after a long day. On our next day, which was a 6.5-mile hike to Pine Grande. It was largely an uneventful day, other than some heavy rain and strong winds throughout the hike. Day 6 would prove to be another moderate hiking day as we went 8 miles across a 4 to 5 hour time length to get to Los Cuernos. However, the weather would finally clear on this day, giving us some more sun for the first time in days. The 7th day of our trek would be our last day where we backpacked as we set out to Central, which is close to where we began, where we would rest the rest of the day to prepare for our big day hike tomorrow. We had an early start to the day as we had to pack up our things early, with it being our final day in Torres del Paine. The day hike started pretty well as we quickly gained elevation before reaching the hard part, which was very strenuous, but eventually we managed to make it to the Torres del Paine, where we spent some time having fun before heading back down. Afterwards, we would get on a bus that would take us all back down to Puerto Natales, where we spent the night before waking up next morning, where we took a flight back to Santiago and spent the next 2 days there, where we chilled in our hostel for the most part, before eventually getting on a flight that would lead us back home. The end.